Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cosmic Intelligence Agency's global transmissions that we are beginning right now. I am Julija Simas from Melbourne, Australia, beaming in from headquarters, and I'm very excited to announce this, let's say, new beginning, but it's actually quite an old beginning. We're going back to what we used to do, and that was do more live meetings for the CIA online with our agents around the world. And in these events, we hope to just let you get to know the agents around the world a lot better, what kind of astrologers they are, what kind of astrology they do, how they would approach the different sort of ways of guidance through these very difficult times that we're living through, and just generally chat about astrology, what it means to us, because as CIA agents, we are all astrologers, and we very much believe it, well, like one of the agents 144 says, we don't believe in astrology, we practice it. We see it as a reality of what we can understand the world with, what we understand ourselves with in our personal lives, and how we can, let's say, help others with that understanding. The cosmos being our muse and partner in our lifetimes. So we hope you enjoy these sessions. Behind the scenes, we have had a few meetings just to get a schedule up. So there's quite a few things coming every week. We're either beaming in from New York City as the host with Demetrius Bagley, or we're coming in from the UK with Alex Trenoweth, Agent 144 in the UK. And just stay tuned to this channel for now, because as many of you know, that means the Facebook channel, our website is down. The Cosmic Intelligence Agency website has been down for a week. There are many complicated issues behind why, and I'll talk about that a bit later as we show our chart, which has got Pluto, Saturn, and Jupiter on the CIA ascendant. So therefore, yes, astrology is real. It's happening to us. We are in a lockdown in many ways, and we have to be patient to get through. So in the meantime, find us here on Facebook. Now, so today we are going to talk about Mars retrograde. It's a big topic. It's a big theme for 2020, as astrologers talked about what kind of year 2020 would be. The Mars retrograde in Aries is a really big one. And with me today, I have from Utah in the USA, Agent 555 or 555, Louise Edington. Welcome, Louise.
Hi, Julia. Thank you so much for having me on this first one. I love doing lives, so this is really exciting.
Fantastic. Well, I know you do them. You are a prolific astrologer, putting out so much all the time in your own regard. And of course, that's what all agents do. We work as a community together, but then we have our own jobs. And Louise, we haven't done one with you before.
No.
Like I said, we've been doing them every quarter for many years now, and just kind of lapsed a bit, but now we're bringing you weekly. So we're kind of bringing out all of you and showcasing all of our fabulous agents around the world. So Louise, now tell us a little bit about yourself. You are an evolutionary astrologer by, let's say, training.
I am evolutionary astrologer by training, but I also I'm a shamanic practitioner too. So I kind of mix shamanic stuff in with it and kind of put my own spin on it. And I also wrote a book, well, two books, but I've my second book, The Complete Guide to Astrology, kind of integrates the astrology of sect, so some Hellenistic as well into modern astrology. So as I think a lot of us do, we don't stay rigid to one.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, that's right. Like you might study for a while with a particular school or a particular teacher, but then of course, there's so much after that. Like the learning never stops. We always say that. Welcome, and it's great. And two books, like that's pretty impressive. I know you've written them in the last 2 years or something as well.
Yeah. Well, the first one took 10 weeks to write and the second one 6. So
Oh, and now the topic of these books, did you write them because you felt there was a gap in let's say passing on to your own students that, I mean, this is often why we do stuff. It's like, oh, no one's done a talk about this, or I really want to explore this particular aspect of astrology. What was your kind of reasoning behind all of that?
Well, I was very lucky actually. I was found by a publisher who works very differently, and they use keyword searches, and they create an outline of a book and find an astrologer in this case, or a writer, to write the book who fits what they're looking for. And
Right.
the first book integrated a lot of techniques to help people integrate the energies, which I do in my work anyway.
Mhm.
Like shamanic journeys and such like. And the second book took an approach of um, trying to be more inclusive instead of talking about, well, this is always masculine and this is always feminine. And that's a bit of a passion of mine as well, because I'm a bit,
Yeah.
I'm a bit
Well, it's the wonderful blending of the traditions of the past and the modern sort of outlook. I'm very much into incorporating both, because we can't
Mhm.
just, the traditions have been around for thousands of years and developed for reasons, and research. Like every astrologer is like a fractal that takes things somewhat further,
Yeah.
in their own experience, in their own way of doing things, in their way of incorporating, like you said, shamanism. Like for me, the real sky astrology is very important to know what's going on up there, not just in a 2D chart. So yeah, so the
Kind of
uniqueness of
my
it all.
theory that is, we're moving into the age of Aquarius. It's kind of my theory that we're integrating the old in a very modern way. So that is what the age of Aquarius is. So
Uh, that's right. Good
yeah,
time for astrologers. Someone said to me the other day, astrologers should be really kind of, oh, it was a client, so they're into astrology somewhat, but it's like, I remember when the Pluto Uranus square started happening, the work that we were doing here, astrology became much more noticed. It was, social media was, kind of rising at the time. Of course, that all helped. But people started noticing, so much more, just the layperson, that this makes sense, that
yeah.
the world is, going through this transition. And 2020 is that, like, we all saw, Pluto, Saturn, and this conglomeration of, 5 planets at the beginning, in Capricorn at the beginning of the year, called the Capricorn Council, or, there was many words for it. It's like, wow, that is big. And people have seen how big this year has been.
Yeah.
So incredible.
Almost an astrologer's dream, even if it's causing friction.
Exactly. I mean, the things that we sort of get, what do you call it, knocked down about is, you didn't predict a pandemic. But, I say, well, we did predict a reset. We did predict a, sort of falling down of everything to rise up again.
There's
Um,
going to be major chaos.
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, anyway, there's much more to come. So Louise and I are going to, I'm going to share my screen in a minute, but just for those of you that may be more, let's say, newer to astrology, I know there's all kinds of different levels on this big Facebook page of beginner astrologers, some people that don't know much about astrology at all, but we're very much here to help teach you a little bit more about astrology, in the sense of we really always say that you need your own astrology chart to follow what's going on, and this is the way that you're going to, let's say, adapt the information that any of us talk about through these times. So we're not sun sign astrologers, although many of the agents do sun sign astrology. It is what we call the gateway to furthering your astrology. It's like the beginning point, but again, we're kind of moved beyond that. This is not our purpose. There's a lot of sun sign astrology out there. So anyway, catch on as much as you can. If it's too much, go back to it. But otherwise, we're doing it at, let's say, more of an intermediate level, I think.
Yeah.
It again, with the agency, we have a membership where we have, you know, a lot more teaching going on. So these are free events, and we hope you enjoy our conversation today. So I'm going to share my screen. Let's go. As Louise and I will continue to talk about all of this. Let me just get a few, my pointer happening. Good stuff. Okay. So yes, thanks to all the agents behind what's going on and the weekly transmissions that are going to take on and go further, at least till the end of the year. Then we might review. Okay, but I'm sure there's a lot more to do. So let's just have a bit of a recap, Louise, on 2020, like the main transits of 2020. I had written this earlier in the year, but I've just added a few things now because we've experienced some stuff. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
You know, as we said, the Capricorn Council, the Capricorn stellium, where many cycles began at once. Okay, so from Saturn to Pluto, Saturn and Pluto only ever have one conjunction, and that was in January 2020. They get close now, very close in the next couple of weeks again, but they don't perfect again for another 35 years. So as a cycle like that, this is a really significant cycle, isn't it, Louise?
Oh, yes. It's huge.
In Capricorn, it hasn't happened since, you know, 1560 or 15, I can't remember the date now.
I remember the exact date, but 1500. Yeah.
Yeah, around the time of Martin Luther pinning
Yes.
What is it, thesis to the wall. So you know, have a think about how important this timing is that way. Jupiter and Pluto, of course, were involved, but they had 3 conjunctions, another one coming up in November. We had Saturn move into Aquarius for a brief period that gave us this kind of tinge of what's more ahead, you know, before he went back into Capricorn. And just on that sort of edge of Saturn, at the edge of Capricorn, do you remember, Louise, and all these words, lockdown, isolation, social distancing, ISO, all became this this new language. And it was like, oh my goodness, the timing, you know, was just so incredible.
And going back into Aquarius, but we're not here to talk about Saturn. So.
No, there'll be many more transmissions to talk about, you know, Saturn and Aquarius. Again, I'm just kind of pulling up a bit of a background to how we are where we are here. Venus retrograde in Gemini, you know, this was then the kind of, with retrogrades like Venus and Mars, which retrograde the least amount of time of any planets, we can really, let's say they become more potent because of that. Don't you think? Like, so when you see a year that Mars and Venus will be retrograde, you go, oh, okay.
Yeah. And another thing to make it a big year.
And the Venus retrograde in Gemini, I think the biggest thing that came up for us all was that message, I can't breathe, from the death of George Floyd. And this is, look at what I found the other day.
And of course it was in Minneapolis, St. Paul as well, so the Twin Cities, so Gemini. Yeah.
So the message, you know, was big, and Venus retrogrades are a really big cultural message. So, you know, society has been transformed in this time with, you know, regard to everything else that's going on. But look at this line, please, I can't breathe, I can't relax, you got to take this mask off, dude, was the words of George Floyd before he died. Wow. And the mask is a really interesting thing, seeing what has happened, you know, to us.
It is. I didn't realize he said that. Wow.
Yes, I just found it the other day. And then, you know, of course, that has, you know, that rose up all the Black Lives Matter, what do you call it, protests and fighting with the police. The police have become, and government control has become such a big thing, which is, I think, a highlight of how this next 2 months will be managed as well, through the Mars retrograde. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because Mars represents, okay, how we fight for things, but also how, you know, governments fight for things to get what they want, or, you know, countries.
the military too, the militarization of police, all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Yes. So it's a little bit tense very much at the moment, isn't it? As we move towards the end of the year, we'll get more information about Neptune squaring the nodes, but we can say it already is in a sense. And this whole idea with the nodes, also the North Node in Gemini, the confusion around the truth, the information that's circulating. Even in Australia at the moment, we're getting all these crackdowns to the information that we are allowed to receive and circulate. It's really unprecedented and it's very disturbing.
I think it's happening here too. I've been really busy, but I've seen people talking about it.
Yeah. And so you kind of think, okay, so there's more of this ahead. How are we going to deal with that? You know, and again, many people are having a very difficult time through these lockdowns and isolations, depression's rising, suicide rates are rising. It's often not very much talked about. We just, you know, see the COVID numbers rising, but there's a lot more going on. And, you know, again, in these difficult times, you know, what's the positives we can concentrate on here? Louise, have you got any tricks?
Oh, I think we'll come to them. Let's do that.
So this is
what you said, the positives at the bottom there, for you know, the fresher air and the quiet when everybody stayed home was just like amazing to me. I could see the blue sky was bluer. I could hear the birds more. You know, it really made me think about what we're doing to our earth, and I think a lot of people.
I mean, and if we think about, let's say, 2019, which was Jupiter in Sagittarius and this big crescendo of like extremes going over the top, and then the opposite, Jupiter in Capricorn, you know, like, whoa, we're locked down, we can't move, you know, flights are disbanding, all that kind of stuff. You think about, okay, what's the rollout going to look like now? Are we ever going to, you know, fly again? Is it a good idea that the world does lock down for a week every year? You know, is that possible? You know, our breath back, or that kind of thing. I mean, there's so many things that you think about in this. We've got more time to think, haven't we?
Yeah, we have, yeah. Although I don't know if I have. I think astrologers have been busier, but
yes, well, that's true. That's true. It's good for us. So this is, again, many of you would have seen this, but the Capricorn Council that met at 22 and 23 degrees of Capricorn. So somewhere in our own lives, this has been doing something in our chart, hasn't it? You know, and I just wanted to, you know, for those of you not aware, where is Capricorn in your chart? You know, what has been going on in that area of your astrology chart that will help explain how you're coping with what's going on, how best to let's say, maneuver and change your world, change your life at this time as well. Again, this big reset is happened to all of us somehow. I'm not going to read this. You can just look at this as Louise and I sort of discuss. I just had these notes, so I'm happy to share them with you. But a few things that sort of come back to mind is Ceres being part of this, and the sun. I think Jupiter and Pluto, again, that's a pretty intense combination already. But we add the sun, which is the biggest, it's the king of our system, isn't it? It's the sun. You know, it's the light, and it was there, and I think that's really significant.
We had Mercury was right there, of course, as well, and he's the trickster that goes between the worlds. So
between the worlds,
really.
And then Ceres, the goddess that is, let's say, in mythology known for the flowering, or the not flowering, you know, like holding back on things. Also, the rise of the democratic voice is always very much attributed to Ceres, and many other things. So, and Ceres again is a dwarf planet like Eris is, and, you know, others would say Pluto. So I actually see them all, you know, as intense as Pluto. We so much more credence to Pluto because he's been around for a lot longer. But Ceres and Eris are also dwarf planets. So, and of course, all of this stellium was squaring Eris. So the attitude, tell us a little bit about Eris in this, Louise.
Oh, Eris. Well, she's one of my favorites. There's Ceres. I've been studying her a lot too, but Eris, I see Eris as an outsider, really. She's kind of she was not invited to the elite's wedding. She's an unusual character in mythology because she was said to roam the battlefield and bathe in the blood of the dead after the battle. But I don't think she actually killed anybody. She kind of went and almost reveled in it, as if to say, look what you've done. She was that kind of and that to my mind, because she caused the Trojan War basically by throwing in the apple in the myth to the wedding of the gods and goddesses. She is the one the disruptor. She's chaos, she's discord, but she also rips down the picket fence and shows the vanity of the elites and such like. So she's she's one of my favorites. I saw somebody else call her today Cancellation, another astrologer.
Okay.
And I thought cancel culture, we've got that going on. And he said Eris is cancel culture.
Yeah. It's been an incredible year for so many things and very divisive as well, hasn't it? With, I think Venus retrograde in Gemini North Node, there's splits in the system and, ideologies, truth seekers, conspiracies, all that kind of stuff is just so rife. Also with Ceres, I think that many perhaps don't recognize her as also very much the goddess of initiations into life, death, rebirth. So the combination of her and Pluto into, let's say, going to the underworld to, let's say, deal with what needs to rise up again, perhaps in a better way, or let's say, hopefully.
But all the grief and all that as well is Ceres, isn't it? And
yes, people losing people that they can't see.
They can't and grief for not being able to go back to normal, as they say.
Yeah. I mean, that's excruciating, or having a relative overseas dying and you can't go to see them off, so to speak. I mean, that's the grief of Ceres.
Or even into the hospital. People have not been.
Exactly, just in your own town. Exactly. So it's really, really quite dynamic. I'm just bringing up this chart because, again, this is now February the 26th. And because we're talking mostly about Mars, this was just a little bit of a background. Mars entered what we call the Draconic Bowl around the 26th of February, which was the time that, let's say, the lockdowns began or were already happening in Italy and Spain, but, coming on in America and all that kind of stuff. And it was just interesting that we have Mars, let's say, enter this cauldron and the world is, begins lockdown. And it's still there. Now it's kind of squaring this point. Then an eclipse where Jupiter had entered the cauldron, an eclipse on the 26th of December, that we already know that the coronavirus had already begun at that time. So what, an incredible kind of entrance, really.
Yeah.
Of course, we've lived through these incredible bushfires in Australia.
Can I just say what the Draconic Bowl means to people? Because in case they're intermediate, it just meant that they were all contained within.
Okay, sorry, yes, point. The bowl meaning in between the nodes, okay, so that all the planets are in between the nodes. Now, every month, of course, the moon goes out and kind of, pops out here for 2 weeks and then comes back in. Since then, we've had Venus and the Sun and Mercury have moved out of here. But what happens early 2021, it all goes back in again.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm kind of looking at this bowl as somewhat... and we did a webinar with Sarah Gilbert, Agent 66, 2 weeks ago in more context about this. So,
great.
yes, it was informative. She did a lot more research about it. But anyway, just something to keep an eye on. Of course, California's had some horrific bushfires, Colorado. There's much going on. Like every summer now, there's just more and more devastation in our forests. The rising, what do you call it, heat.
Yes.
And yeah, as I was saying before, you know, Ceres is the goddess of the flowering. So how we, let's say, reflower the world. You know, we're looking at Ceres is in Pisces at the moment, but perhaps more will come out when she goes into Aries. When's she heading off into Aries?
I don't know, actually. I know she's turns direct at 28 Aquarius on October the 13th, but I haven't
Right.
looked at moves into Aries. So,
Yeah.
because she's following exactly the same path that Mercury retrograded back at the end of February to into March, the
Okay.
same degrees. And the degree that 28 Aquarius, the degree that they both stationed direct at, Venus was at when on January the 12th, when all of that stuff was in.
They all connect up, don't they? When you look at these things,
That's
it's like they're giving us a message in these places of the zodiac for sure. So, you know, no wonder we're kind of in a fight to, well, retain some kind of democratic voice in all of this as well, which is really rising up. And this is really interesting. I just remembered this the other day that the Oscars at the time voted Parasite as the winning film. You know, the Oscar went to Parasite.
Yeah.
Now, Parasite, of course, we know what that means in a few different levels, but something that latches on and lives on, you know, on behalf of some other thing like a virus. So it's really quite profound how these messages come out, you know, in other ways. And I'm just using Joaquin Phoenix because at the Oscars he did this speech, and this is not all of it. I'm not going to read it out either, but it really, really kind of spoke about everything that the world was really, let's say, had too much of. You know, I think that he was such a voice for, he was even saying we shouldn't fly to these things, you know, us people, us rich people, you know, and then, you know, we get the lockdown from the air, you know, from the flight travel. He was talking about the resources and the food of, you know, the natural world and all the injustices against, you know, people, races, gender, all of that, and we've seen that represented somehow this year, haven't we? As the fight for our rights and ways, and you know, better ways to manage all of that. Yeah.
Well, and the Joker itself, as the movie, you know, the Joker was this virus has affected the poor and the outsiders disproportionately. That's the joke. It's like,
We feel a bit like Joker, don't we? We want to do something, but we just, you know, we can't get fined.
I know.
Get locked up. But it was so profound, wasn't it, that it also won the best movie.
Yeah.
You know, best actor, best movie. Sorry, not best movie, best actor. And the mental health of the planet, you know, in this time frame as well. So addressing, you know, there's so many other issues than the one that has become the biggest issue, I think. And I just wanted to show his chart because, again, if you relate it to how your chart looks like, you know, where's Capricorn? His speech was, you know, happened at the time of the Capricorn stellium in his 5th house, squaring his Mercury retrograde in Uranus and his Chiron. So, you know, deeply valuing, you know, his voice in how he can make a change and a difference. So, yeah, just kind of, again, and his Saturn.
And wearing his Mars, and of course, you know, we watched in Libra in this second, and of course, you know, I watched Adam Gainsbourg presentation on the CIA, and he was talking about this Mars cycle, seeing as we're talking about Mars, being birthed in Libra. So this is a Libra Mars cycle. So,
yes.
Yeah.
So yes, we're all fighting for injustice somehow, and it's really coming to the fore at this point. Another just example, I'll just move quickly through there. Prince Harry having the stellium in his 1st house, squaring his Venus, his international wife, who changed a lot of what was going on, trining his sun and his moon, and of course he moved back, moved to America, disassociated himself and his role with the monarchy. So anyway, and Jupiter, look at that, Jupiter and the nodes right on his ascendant at the time. So again, learning to read charts is, of course, what astrologers do. Jupiter, Pluto, another big subject. Again, just have a look at the background as we talk. The important thing here is, I think, that Jupiter and Pluto meet every 12 years. And the last time they met was at the global financial crisis. And the next time they meet in this year will be just as Mars goes direct after the US elections, and November the 12th. We don't want to get into the election talk.
No, I'm going to avoid that.
But again, the Jupiter and Pluto cycle to meet 3 times in this year is extremely powerful for issues that arise with these principles. So,
of course, we already had one stock market crash,
yeah, well, the economy is completely stuffed at the moment.
Well, it is, but the stock market is pretending it isn't because it's being propped up. But anyway.
Well, this is the other thing. It's like when Jupiter and Pluto first met, this is when Australians started getting all the relief, like, oh, we'll pay you not to go to work. And people go, this is too easy. Wow. The benefic of Jupiter, the Pluto, and then the recognition also for many of us that, oh, well, governments can just print money. They just make it when they feel like it. So it's really like mind-boggling, isn't it?
It is. So we know we're being treated like the plebeians that Ceres represents. So.
Yeah. And I think, again, the injustices that are rising during these times and how people are treated. This is now where Mars retrograde in Aries, the individual and how we stand up to what is going on as well. Again, Mars and Venus being so important in this year with their retrogrades. We've been through Venus, but just with these retrogrades that don't happen often, we need to look at them as complete cycles as well, because their influence carries on. So Venus retrograde in Gemini, she's not there at the moment, but her star point was made there, and the next one happens in March next year. So keeping an eye on the sun and the cycle with the planet is really a significant.
Venus and Mars are square right now as we speak.
Yes, there you go. Story, hey. Let's get on to Mars, okay? I know you said, but I just thought it was important to sort of give us a bit of a background to what's going on. So the red planet. Red, of course, it does represent all the things that boil and bubble, not bubble.
Boil and burn and
representing the passion, adrenaline. If you read the more traditional texts, it's the planet of war. It's the planet of anger. It represents how we deal with all of those things when we are, let's say, have to fight our way through the world, through our life, and that kind of thing. And the way that we weaponize ourselves as well.
Yeah.
So what we will wear for protection, like our armor. Do we have? I mean, we're all wearing masks these days. Condoms. The last time Pluto and Saturn were together in 1982, the AIDS virus came out, and we were told to wear condoms everywhere. They were given out at parties and stuff, remember? I was just 18 or something, so it was all kind of like, what? So have a think about those kind of things. The tools of Mars are always sharp. Okay, so we've got to watch sharp objects. But of course, guns are part of this story now, aren't they?
Yes.
Like, guns aren't sharp, but they can certainly, they're wicked. So we put that in. So have a think about how you stand up for yourself. I've always thought, Louise, that when we, let's say, and this is what I wanted to bring up with you today as well, is when you see Mars retrograde in someone's charts and coming up like this one, it's quite rare, which we'll talk about in a sec. How do you help guide people through a Mars retrograde 2-month transition?
Well, obviously it depends on the whole chart and where it is, but I tend to look at it that we're really taking another look at our identity and slowing down where we're perhaps over assertive, over aggressive, and really kind of taking a step back and seeing where we can slow it down a little, because Mars likes to move so fast. I know for myself, I have Mars in Sag in the 11th, and I'm like major foot in mouth syndrome with, I kind of open my mouth and blurt and things. So it's an opportunity to really slow down, and it's in my 3rd house. So slow down how I speak, to take a pause. So it depends on the chart really, but like Mars is transiting my 3rd house, so I'm really learning to hold back and not always shout my mouth off.
We're already feeling it, aren't we? Because Mars is
Yeah.
goes retrograde next week or in a few days. So I
started to feel it when it went into the shadow.
Yeah, okay, which was a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
So this Mars retrograde, as we know, Aries is its home sign, so it's much more, let's say, potent and significant in the sense it belongs in this place, and it's doing a retrograde, so it's slowing down for a reason. We look at that, to guide people. Where do you have to slow down or do things differently from how Mars, like with the slides before, how you operate with your Mars energy.
If you drive too fast, or if you, I don't know, all those things.
Yeah, or expect things to go your way all the time. Yeah. That's a real Aries kind of thing, like it's my way, highway. There was an exercise we did with an astrologer years ago when I was learning at the beginning, and she asked us, like, depending on where our Mars was, if it was in water natally, or it was in fire, or if it was in earth or air. Mars in fire is more like a wand. It's like flame. It's a wand that shows the way, like a quest or a mission, like I'm going that way. And so I see that as maybe we have to redo the mission. We have to go back on, the quest, or we have to change direction for whatever reason. So again, like as Louise said, there's many different versions of that depending on what is going on in our lives. So Mars, again, from the traditional things, we can see him carrying a flame or some kind of magical wand. I mean, it doesn't have to be a sharp object or a gun to get our way. And this is the higher sort of octave of Mars and how we can operate at this time. And it also, of course, Mars and Aries have a lot to do with our physical exertion, our energy levels, and then, in this time frame, we've already been so locked down that, can we get any slower, really?
But I kind of think this Mars retrograde is going to be a little bit frustrating because of that. I think people are going to be wanting to go out and just get back to normal and move forward, and they're going to feel really held back, and especially because of the squares to the Capricorn energy. It's like, I really want to do this. But I also think Mars is being softened. If you remember, I noticed the occultations, the moon going over Mars 3 times, September, October, August, September, and October, is kind of softening the Mars this time, I think, as well. So we're having to learn to temper all those things, I think. So, yeah.
Well, exactly.
Temper is a good Mars word, actually.
No, that's right. But again, every Mars retrograde is a step of evolution. Like, okay, go backwards on the way that, let's say, we react to things because it's not going our way. We react to things because someone's doing something to us, and it's our behavior that gets the work out. So during these times, it's really good to sort of, hold yourself up and go, oh, how am I reacting to this? I'm being very tested at the moment with this website stuff. How am I reacting?
You could explode, or you could go,
oh, it's very, very volatile. But we can learn so much, I think, from Mars retrograde about maturing in that department, of our own lives, like, grow up. You can often say that to young men, this is not the way to get your way. This is not the way to get your way, as we know as mothers and stuff. But again, we can learn so much from that. So these are the dates. So next week, this is Australian date, so 9th of September in the US, 28 Aries to 15 Aries by the 14th of November. Mars is, of course, going to become more, brighter and be called what Adam Gainsbourg calls the midnight star, so visible all night. The sun,
very red.
Mars will be the closest it is to Earth in its cycle, and it will be very visible. So as well as, the outer planets Saturn and Jupiter getting closer together, it's a really kind of great time to be watching the sky anyway, the physical sky, isn't it? Now, interestingly, Mars does not retrograde in Aries very often. The last time it retrograded in Aries in its own sign was 1988, but it also went back to Pisces a little bit. So it sort of started in Aries and went back to Pisces. And the time before that it was fully retrograde in Aries is 1941. And that's called the
before Pearl Harbor.
Before Pearl Harbor. I was doing a bit of, again, research into that 1941. The World War was already happening, but it was a really potent time for the Nazis and the Soviets clashing as well, like coming into that part of the world.
But as well, though, I think this Mars retrograde is unlike one, I'm sure if we look back, but in anybody's lifetime, of the two, because of the square to Capricorn. It's just insane. I have a good quick story to tell, though, if you don't mind, about me in the last one in 1988.
Oh, great! Yes.
About how it changed me then.
Yeah, remember, that's good. Yes.
Yeah, because I think for anybody who's old enough, if you look back to 1988, it was about October to I can't remember the exact dates. Anyway, it was later in the year, fall, about the same time of year. Yeah. And I was in my late 20s, shall we say, and I was a major party animal, and major. And I remember sitting in a bar with this guy who was a kind of boyfriend, if you like, and I was like, I've got to get out of here. I've got to change. This life is terrible. So Mars retrograde in Aries, and he just looked at me and said, "You can't run away from yourself."
Yes, right.
Like, that is so Mars in Aries retrograde. Because I couldn't run away from myself. I had to look at myself and change.
Yeah. Well, the midpoint of the retrograde is, of course, when the sun is in Libra, right? So around 20 degree mark of Aries Libra polarity. So yes, of course, we can get angry about things, blame everybody else, but again, you can't run away from yourself, and the way it becomes the individual's reason to let's say, get better at things or work out better ways to deal with things in your own way.
And I did. I kind of straightened my life out, which is very Mars in Aries too. It's like...
This is just a mandala of the Mars retrograde cycles. Like you've probably seen one of Venus, which is a perfectly five-pointed rose, let's say, and star. But the Mars retrograde, as you can see, there's 7 points in here and then an 8th one starts. So Mars retrogrades in the same part of the zodiac can happen every 15, 16 or 17 years, but then they can miss a beat, like miss a loop, like we haven't had one of Mars retrograde in Aries for 32 years. So just to know that Mars's orbit is not as pure and as harmonious as Venus's, and it does kind of skip this beat now and then. So I think that tells us a lot as well. Like we have keep updating the system.
It's the most erratic, isn't it, of all the retrograde cycles, I think. So, yeah.
Because it's not exact, like Venus is pretty exact, but it's not. And that says a lot about the difference between Mars and Venus anyway,
It does.
That's right. So this is where we are now. Mars retrograde, stationed at in square to Saturn, which is what we've been feeling like the last 2 weeks or so. So I'm sure that you're all kind of feeling some kind of frustrations about not being able to, let's say, move where you want to move.
Or move on with your website as well.
Or move on in whatever way. That's right. There's kind of, this blockage, and that's the brick wall that is Saturn, Mars against Saturn. But the most significant thing right now is that Mars is stationing there. So he's there for a long time, a couple of weeks in this dilemma, squaring Saturn.
And today we're within 5 days, aren't we? So it's like really the station now. It's really in it. 5 days either side is like really intense. So
yes, well, again, it's at 28 degrees. When it's in that sort of 1 degree mark of the station, again, it's been there for a while. So, so what is going on with this square that I think it's, patience is like we can't push past things we can't do much about, I suppose. This is the frustration as well.
And being asked to kind of master slowing down in a very abrupt way, really, with the square almost, because the Saturn mastery is like, just get on with it, really. Like it or lump it, you are staying still right now. Yeah.
Use the time. Saturn is time. Use the time. Put your energy into, let's say, more, productive or more beneficial sort of parts of your life.
I'm actually becoming a hypnotherapist. I'm studying to be a hypnotherapist. The live class starts just a couple of days after the station retrograde, and it's in my 3rd house, which is studying. So there you go.
Well, again, I'm sure there's many stories of everybody out there with the Mars retrograde station. And then this next one, of course, yes, the high point, but the midpoint of the retrograde. And as you can see, it's still, of course, now it squares Pluto more directly. So when now we move from Mars square Saturn to Mars, although they're all in a conglomeration, but more exactly, Mars square Pluto is really sort of delving to, let's remember that Mars and Saturn are very much about cutting off things that don't work, okay? And Mars and Pluto, how would you differentiate? Again, the Pluto brings in that there's the deeper transformation going on after things begin to get cut off.
I also think of it as very surgical. It's like digging really deep into what needs to change.
And how deep it goes. That's right. Pluto represents how deep it goes. Again, you can look at that in so many ways. But if you look at it in your own personal life, there's a lot of things that can be uncovered a lot further in this time. Like, the prodding and poking and Mars going, I've got to go back to that because I haven't really uncovered that particular part of myself or story about this or whatever. It's really about going into the depths and not fearing what you may find or what rises.
And of course, Pluto is back at 22 degrees for that square, for that T square too, which is where he was on January the 12th with all the Capricorn stuff. So it's going to hark back to that, I think, as
Yeah.
well, before COVID, if you like. So.
And look, I mean, the biggest thing that's going on out there is as well is the rising fear about what's going on.
Yeah.
And no help to the media or our governments and how they're just kind of displaying things and telling us stuff. The rising fear about, what should we do at this time? Feeling helpless, not being able to, let's say, do anything about anything. So what do we do with that?
Well, well, again, I think we can only look at ourselves and look at our own life. That's the integral message, to my mind, of a Mars retrograde in Aries, because Aries is the I am. It's like, and we can't rely on them anymore, which is Capricorn. We can't rely on our institutions, our media, all this kind of stuff.
So it's almost like, the individual in whatever way is kind of invited to stand up further. But again, we've got so many restrictions against us, fines, lockups, can't do that. We're seeing it in Australia just so much. It's really, really...
they've been quite draconian, haven't they?
Yeah. And, where's that going to take us? I sense that... is there a group uprising here or not quite yet? It's more about us, I don't want to say festering, but sort of like staying, I think it's about staying still for now to see what unravels. It's not so much about taking action in a way for yourself.
Some things I do see happening, though. I mean, this is connected to the nodes, of course, as well, and the station retrograde is, and the T square particularly. It's at the same degree as the lunar nodes. And the North Node in Gemini, I'm seeing a lot more people turn to local community and how we can support each other locally instead of relying on the rules. And a lot of people here, at least I know, are just given up on the idea of voting changing anything. And just we've got to do it for ourselves now and kind of come together locally. Yeah.
I mean, again, Aries, Mars, you would hope for more independent action somehow away from the system that is. And we're looking at all of this and how it's crumbling and, the demise of the patriarchy, but it's still holding on and showing its worst.
Oh, it is.
And, it's like, is this just a patience call to say it is crumbling, it's going down? But again, again, our own individual role in that, how does that help? I think this is part of the Mars retrograde as well.
Like stopping shopping from with Amazon and things like that. It's simple things like that,
Yeah. Well, we all do a lot of that mindless stuff, don't we? Oh. And not know, that's right, we're just helping, Mr. Amazon get further and further up the ladder, or whatever, so, how are we supporting those things? So really this retrograde calls for us to really, really look deep and go deep into our own actions and way of activating things or not activating things, and then complaining about stuff. Like, again, pushing it on to it's someone else's fault. It's very much Mars. It's your fault, so I'm going to fight you.
It is.
Brings up a lot of stuff, doesn't it? Yeah,
it does. It's probably even bigger. This whole Mars retrograde with the squares is probably ultimately an even bigger transit than the conjunction of Saturn, Pluto, and everything, because it's activating all that. But now we're actually deciding what to do with all the things that have happened since that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Mars retrograde ends on the 14th of November at 12 Aries. And I just doubled up these two charts as opposed to the one I wanted. So we'll just have to imagine what that chart is. But Mars at 12 Aries, it's not quite on Chiron. And then pretty much for the rest of the year, it continues to square everything again.
Mm.
That it's hit, it will square Jupiter, as Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn, as you can see in the next few months, will all go direct again.
Yeah.
Mars will go direct, and then we always say that the transition of a retrograde to go past the squares or past the conjunctions again is the alleviation of the problem.
Yeah.
Don't we? So the retrograde pass is the toughest. And as we saw in the chart before, these planets are still retrograde at the beginning here, at the height of the opposition. These planets are no longer retrograde. Mars is. So we can perhaps see somewhat alleviation as the retrograde progresses.
Yeah. Yeah.
To then, the retrograde, let's say, square to Pluto, uncovering the depths and going where we most fear to go, let's say, because of necessity or because of maturity or if evolution, self-evolution, then the next phase will be easier because we've gone through the hardest part of it. Okay, so that's just something to, let's say, have the light at the end of the tunnel.
But we're not really out of the whole retrograde and all the squares till towards the end of December, are we?
No, that's right. It's all to, Mars won't leave all of that till the end of the year, and then we start another big battle of Jupiter and Saturn square Uranus, which we won't get into now, but that is, to me, that's really like, this is the big reset, and then we move into, let's say, designing the new way it's going to be. I think with the battles that ensure with that.
Yeah.
And what have I done here?
We're not going to recognize ourselves, I think, then at the end of it. I kind of think.
Well, it's also a great time for a makeover. Like, again, depending what, again, your physical energy. I mean, a big part of what's going on in the world and the fear of, let's say, getting COVID is your immunity, your own physical, strength, because that is a big savior. Like, if you've got high immunity, you'll fare much better, of course, and not, if you're not old or over 80 or 90, then you've got much better chances as well, of course. And so, these kind of things, we can beef ourselves up with more strength and courage, actually.
Yeah. So it's a great time. This whole retrograde's a great time to expend some of that frustrated action energy on an exercise routine.
And put it into something much more, let's say, responsible for yourself, more effective, more beneficial in so many ways. Again, thinking about Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter squares, responsible, evolutionary and beneficial, right?
Yeah.
Like, think of those things for yourself. And again, take it back now. Again, I think many of us are so concerned about what's going on out there, but let's strengthen ourselves up. And from that, we've got a better footing, let's say. Yeah. I mean, that's the kind of things that when, again, you see a client, where's the retrograde happening for them? We know that it's some kind of a redo to the way things have been operating for oneself.
Yeah.
We can easily say, you need to reactivate that, or you need to go back to that, or you need to start again. I mean, again, so many different versions for depending what's happening in your life, but somewhere there's a mission reignited, or a mission that needs to, let's say, be taken up again. Yeah. Okay, either to do with our health, with our work, with whatever. Again, this is now, more personal versions of that, of course, depending what you've got in Aries. People with planets in Aries will be really, feeling that very strongly, as in, come on. I always see, let's say that Mars retrograde is on your Uranus, like your natal Uranus, although you'd be pretty old for that, wouldn't you? But anyway, whatever. Let's just say it was.
I'd be like careful, be mindful of driving and accidents and things first.
Yeah. Well, the retrograde planet comes to Uranus and says, hey, Uranus, what you doing? You've got to do it differently, mate.
Yeah.
That's how I see it. Or if Mars retrograde is going over your Venus, it's like, hey, Venus, I'm here to tell you something. I'm here to reactivate something in your value system. I'm here to reactivate how you maybe make money. I'm here to reactivate how you your relationship zone, or whatever. If it's Mercury, it's Mars is saying, hey, Mercury, are you where's your head at? Or something. So we get the messages personally by what else is in our chart, of course. Yeah.
And if you're one of those lucky people to be born in 1988 towards the end and born with Mars retrograde, you'll probably quite enjoy it.
Again, good point. If you are born with Mars retrograde in Aries, then it's a double whammy to sort of say you're really having a deeper look into what that Mars retrograde is all about, because you don't get it every 15 years.
Yeah.
Right? You don't get it every 15 years. You get it every 32. So again, the other things to look at is go back to 1988. If you were around then, what happened in your life? To Louise, that was a big sort of moment. I can't really remember in my own life. I wasn't studying astrology then.
I wasn't either, but I've looked back.
Those of you that are, starting at a younger age, it's just so beneficial for you to already, keep a diary, keep an astro diary of stuff that's happened. If I had younger kids, I started studying when my kids were younger, but, it's almost like keep diaries for them and big things that happen in their life, and you can learn so much about transits and what kind of things, let's say, transpire for different people at different times with the same transit. Yeah. So anyway, all many good ways of learning. And then, so yes, this is that Mars in the Draconic Bowl. More information on our website when it comes back up, and I'll be very happy to announce. Maybe it comes back up by Mars turning retrograde. And this is the kind of weird stuff that happens because Mars will turn to retrograde and it's, okay, all the tension's gone. So it really does swing around differently for different people. Okay. I wouldn't be surprised. Although I don't want to think about waiting that long. And I just wanted to point out, so Mars, the previous one is when Mars went into the cauldron, or I call it the cauldron, the Draconic Bowl. This next one is when it goes out. And you'll bring
Venus star point.
Yes. And this is actually when Venus star point is happening in Aries. So ahead at this time as a really kind of significant time to much more, let's say, more freedom or much more clarity about what is and where kind of we're headed. So I think there's a few more months to go. And Venus with the sun as well, Mars at Venus star point, the last one. There's a bit of a story there. We'll do more work on that as we go. Okay.
Too much for a live because there's a lot to carry in.
So have a think about it, guys. What is your kind of mission in this time frame to reignite, re-energize something somehow, or that planet that is being transited, reactivate, regress? I mean, there's all those things. You think, okay, I should be meditating more, I should be exercising more, all of that kind of stuff. It's a really great time during Mars retrograde to actually get into a new kind of regime, let's say. Personally, I think the Aries really, really accentuates the re-identification of yourself as doing something. in particular. Doing it on your own is a real Aries type of mission as well. You know, again, relying on others, taking charge, leading the way somehow, reviving the spirit and the physical body, all part of what's going on. So I'm sure you can all think of that and what it's meaning to you right now. So take that on as a,
like
again,
you said, you're probably feeling it already. So you probably feel what's coming. Yeah.
But again, as the retrograde begins, there's, you know, 60 days of really, is it what they say, 52 days, you have to do something for 52 days to get it really into the system? Is it 52 days? I'm just trying to think. Something.
I've heard different things. Some say it's 30.
Just again, you know, a really good time to sort of, let's say, redo that zone on a personal mission somewhat, to refresh, you know, start again or restart, you know, again, as we've said, and alleviate things. I just put this in because this is so disturbing about, you know, the things that are going to come up for people in our lockdowns. This is in Australia. People getting arrested because of you know, let's say being motivated to do something, you know, that they think is going to be a good thing. And then also that, like, again, in Australia, who knows, maybe this life will get taken down because we've said too much, but we haven't. But in the media taking over our channels, you know, really, really disturbing. And this makes me realize that there's so much that needs to be done now as communities to move away from the big corporations that control our information and media, and how we can do that independently. Again, another big story, but how important that is at this time.
I shared this one on Facebook. Nice, great one.
This is how we all feel now, isn't it? It's like, what is going on? I'm really had it already.
Yeah.
Yes, and it has a lot of meaning, you know, time to retreat to the forest, to regroup, to redo things, to, you know, get the mission sort of happening away. And the forest means away from those that are watching, really. So anyway, that's just a secret mission. Now, I just want to show you the CIA chart because of what's going on. And look at Saturn here right on our ascendant, near Chiron, and Mars retrograding in the 4th house as we redo things. So over the moon, over our north node. I'm hoping it is just a few more days, but I just have to stay in tune, and I'll let you all know. I mean,
well, it stations direct on the north node, doesn't it? Because it's 15 degrees, it stations direct.
Please don't tell me it's going to be 2 months. It can't be.
Oh my God.
Anyway, as I said, lucky we have the Facebook page to kind of keep momentum. But again, personally, I know a lot of people that are leaving Facebook because of, again, these new kind of laws and lockdowns. Like, so how, you know, we've got numbers here, but how do we transfer them to our own system? We'll be thinking about that as we redo things. But first of all, we just got to get the website up. And just a shout out to JD Agent 64, who actually died a few weeks ago, and he was our webmaster that, you know, he's looking over us. Please, JD, send more help. There's a few glitches and big problems because he was overseeing all the stuff. So the blockages are to do with permissions and jurisdiction to actually get our stuff back. So it's a bit of a nightmare, guys. Bear with us until then. I'm just kind of finishing up, but we can still kind of talk. Again, with the Mars retrograde, we had a great webinar with Agent 46 2 weeks ago. Was it 2 weeks ago?
It was really good anyway. It's really
and that would be available on the website, but it's going to be available on Adam's website anytime now, so I can put the links in there. It's a 90-minute presentation of his fantastic work to do with the whole cycle of Mars, and he's been working with Mars for a long time and Mars cycles. So it's free for the membership, and the membership, when it comes back and running, you're going to get all these bonuses, which I'm already sending you. So don't worry, you're not missing out on our presentations. They can still keep running. So
is well worth it, by the way. So
yes, and they are, aren't they? People keep saying fantastic how much good stuff is in there for everybody. And our next one coming up, The Astrology of Black Holes by Rod in the UK. He's done some great research over the years into, you know, how do we incorporate these things like the galactic center into our astrology charts and other points. He actually mentioned the other day that Mars retrograde begins near the what is it, the galaxy and Andromeda galaxy, like in our sky. So he's kind of been mapping, you know, that are further out. So that's free for the members coming up, and we won't miss out. So and just, this is an event on our Facebook page. So again, for now, everything that we do is going to be, you know, keep our Facebook page happening or checking in there. And I love this by Alex, as I said before. I love it when people ask me if I really believe in astrology. I get to tell them, no, I really practice it. And so I'll leave you with that message, because I think it's really significant to, you know, we're taking this down from, you know, making it up. Of course not. We are seeing it happening live to you, to us, to the world, to our clients. And again, sort of working, let's say, the best path and navigation path through all of that. So our next,
we really live it. I'd say we really live it as well as practice.
That's true. Yes, we do. And keep an eye on the sky. As I say, keep looking up agents, because the Saturn and Jupiter, there's a Saturn and Jupiter and the moon the other day, but they're getting closer and closer together. And the really amazing thing is that Pluto is in there, in the middle of these two. I mean, this is how close they all are. And so Saturn and Jupiter get to Aquarius. I think they remain in quite the same latitude and declination. So they are really going to be together. So that's a really good thing just to watch, like night sky, clear sky, watch these two come closer and closer together over the time. So before
Agent 555, by the way, I'm not 55.
Oh, I'm sorry. So Louise, you can contact at her website. She also writes a lot for Medium. You are someone that writes so much, like really.
I know.
A week.
My moon in Gemini with Lilith conjunct. It's like in Virg in the 6th house. I'm like
so keep an eye out for Louise. Follow her Cosmic Owl Astrology website as well. That's the Facebook page, isn't it? Cosmic Owl Astrology. And if you need to get in touch with the CIA or me, that's my email there. The email's working, thank goodness. But otherwise, yeah, keep in touch. Let me stop the share through the Facebook page. I hope you enjoyed that little update.
Happy Mars retrograde, everybody, because Mars is kind of seething a little bit at the moment. So be kind to each other, I would say.
Each other, patience, deep breathing. It really is a significant sort of time on the planet. We're not getting out of this easy.
What a time to be born.
Well, that's it. What don't they say? Like the time for you is now. That's why you're here. That's why we're here. That's why astrology is here. Growing, and so keep spreading those fractals of astrological light, everybody, all of you out there. I look forward to the next host will be Alex next week, followed by Demetrius, and then an equinox update with myself again. So we're going to be rotating. So thank you, Louise, for being with me today, just to kind of introduce the new section.
for having me anytime.
And we will see you all again soon. So yes, keep in touch, keep safe, and be patient. We'll see you again. Thank you.
Bye.